The moment my marriage ended didn't happen with shouting. There were no slammed doors, no broken plates, no dramatic accusations. It happened quietly. So quietly that if someone had been walking past our Brooklyn apartment that evening, they would have heard nothing at all. I was standing in the kitchen making pasta. It was a simple Thursday night. Rain tapped softly against the window, and the city lights reflected across the wet street below. Daniel had texted earlier saying he would be home around 7. 7 came, then 7:30. When the door finally opened, I called out from the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready." He didn't answer. I turned off the stove and walked into the living room. Daniel stood near the door, still holding his keys. His coat was wet from the rain, but he hadn't taken it off. Something about the way he was standing made my stomach tighten. After 7 years together, you learn how to read silence. "What's wrong?" I asked. He looked at me for a moment like he was trying to memorize my face. Then he said 4 words that changed everything. "We need to talk." People say that sentence all the time. But the moment you hear it, something inside you already knows the conversation will not end well. I sat down across from him on the couch. "What's going on?" He took a deep breath. "I met someone." The words hung between us. For a second, my brain refused to process them. "You met someone?" "Yes." His voice was calm. Too calm. Like he had practiced this conversation in his head many times before walking through the door. "How long?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "About 6 months." 6 months. Half a year of dinners together. Half a year of movie nights. Half a year of him kissing me goodnight while another woman existed somewhere in the background of our lives. "Does she know about me?" I asked. "Yes." "And she's okay with that?" "She thinks I'm leaving." I felt the room grow strangely quiet. "Are you?" He nodded slowly. "Yes." Just like that. No anger. No argument. Just a decision already made. "When?" I asked. "Tonight." I blinked. "Tonight?" I packed a bag earlier. For a moment I thought he was joking. But then I looked toward the bedroom hallway. The closet door was open. Half his clothes were gone. While I was cooking dinner, my husband had been packing the life we built together. "What's her name?" I asked. "Lily." Of course she had a name. People who destroy marriages always have names. "How did you meet?" "Work." That made sense. Affairs almost always begin somewhere ordinary. Offices. Conferences. Late meetings that turn into long conversations. "Do you love her?" I asked. "Yes." "And you don't love me anymore?" He didn't answer. But he didn't need to. Silence can be louder than any confession. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he stood up. "I'll come back for the rest of my things later." I nodded. "Okay." He looked surprised. "You're not going to stop me?" "No." "Why not?" Because the truth had suddenly become very clear. People who want to leave will leave. And begging someone to stay only delays the inevitable. But I didn't say that. Instead, I simply watched him walk toward the door. For a second, he paused. I wondered if he might turn around. But he didn't. The door opened, then closed. And just like that, 7 years of love disappeared into the hallway. I stood alone in the quiet apartment. The pasta on the stove had gone cold. Rain continued falling outside the window. And somewhere in the city, Daniel was driving toward the woman he believed would make him happier. What he didn't know was that leaving me would turn out to be the worst decision of his life. The first few months after he left were the hardest. Every corner of the apartment reminded me of something we used to do together. The couch where we watched movies. The kitchen table where we ate dinner every night. The bedroom that suddenly felt too large for one person. Friends kept asking if I was okay. Family members called constantly. Everyone expected anger. Or tears. But most of the time I just felt quiet. Because heartbreak doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it simply changes the way the world feels when you wake up in the morning. Slowly, things began to shift. I repainted the bedroom walls. I replaced the old couch Daniel loved. I moved the furniture around. Little by little, the apartment stopped looking like a life we had built together and started looking like something new, something mine. Meanwhile, Daniel built the life he believed he wanted. I saw the photos online. Weekend trips, restaurants, smiling beside Lily like the past had never existed. For a while it hurt to look. Then one day it didn't. Because the strangest thing about heartbreak is that time quietly replaces pain with clarity. And by the time Daniel finally realized the mistake he had made, I had already learned how to live without him. A year changes people. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. The first few months after Daniel left felt like walking through fog. Every morning I woke up expecting to hear him moving around the apartment, and every morning the silence reminded me he was gone. But time does something strange to heartbreak. It doesn't erase it. It reshapes it. By the time summer arrived in Brooklyn, the apartment didn't feel like a reminder of what I had lost anymore. It felt like a place that belonged entirely to me. I painted the bedroom walls light gray. I replaced the old couch with something modern and bright. I started taking weekend walks through the city again, places I used to go with Daniel, but now they felt different. Lighter. Friends told me I seemed calmer, stronger. I didn't know if that was true. But I did know something important had changed. For the first time in years, my life wasn't built around someone else's decisions. It was mine. Meanwhile, Daniel was building the life he thought he wanted. I saw glimpses of it online. Photos from restaurants, trips to the coast, smiling beside Lily like they had never hurt anyone. At first, those pictures stung. Then, slowly, they stopped mattering. Because something surprising happens when you stop chasing the past. You start discovering the person you forgot to become. By the time autumn arrived, I realized something unexpected. I was happy again. Not the loud, dramatic happiness people post about online, but quiet happiness. The kind that arrives when your life finally feels peaceful. And that was exactly when Daniel came back. It was a cold November evening. I had just returned home from work when someone knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. Not rushed. Not impatient. I opened it and froze. Daniel stood in the hallway. He looked thinner than I remembered. His hair was shorter, and the confidence he used to carry so easily had disappeared. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "Hi." I leaned against the doorframe. "Hi. I know this is unexpected. That's one word for it." He looked down at his hands. "Can we talk?" For a moment, I considered saying no. But curiosity is a powerful thing. So I stepped aside. 5 minutes. He walked into the apartment slowly, looking around like someone visiting a place from another life. "You changed it," he said, glancing at the living room. "Yes, it looks nice. Thank you." We stood there awkwardly for a moment before he sat down. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. The sentence felt familiar, but now it sounded different. "What kind of mistake?" I asked. "Leaving you." I crossed my arms. "That's a big realization." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I thought I knew what I wanted. And I was wrong." I studied him carefully. "What happened to Lily?" He hesitated. "She left." "When?" 3 months ago." "Why?" Daniel let out a tired laugh. "Because eventually she realized something." "What?" "That if I could leave my wife after 7 years." He paused. "I could leave her too." The room went silent. For the first time that evening, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I spent months thinking about you," he continued. "About us. About everything I threw away. And that brought you here tonight?" He nodded slowly. "I want another chance." There it was. The moment people imagine when they talk about stories like this. The man who walked away. The man who chose someone else. Now standing in my living room asking to come back. A year ago those words would have shattered me. Now they just sounded late. I know I don't deserve it, he said quickly. But if there's even a small chance. I walked to the window and looked out at the Brooklyn skyline glowing in the distance. Do you know what the hardest part of that year was? I asked. What? Learning to rebuild my life without you. I know, he said softly. No, I replied. You don't. He looked confused. The hardest part wasn't the loneliness, I continued. It was realizing I had built my entire world around someone who could walk away so easily. Daniel looked down. I was selfish. Yes, I regret it every day. I believe you. He looked up quickly. Then maybe we can fix this. I turned back toward him. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other. Then I said the one sentence that finally ended our story. You didn't just leave me for someone else. What do you mean? You showed me exactly who you are. His shoulders dropped slightly. I've changed. Maybe. But the most important thing I learned this year, I paused, was that I deserve someone who didn't have to lose me to understand my value. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't beg again. He simply nodded slowly. I guess that's fair, he said quietly. Then he stood up and walked toward the door. This time, when it opened and closed behind him, the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting the person who left you. Sometimes the best revenge is building a life so full that when they finally come back, there's simply no space left for them.